Okay, we're going to talk about the community incentive feature uh, in Impact Dashboard. So here again, I've got a model that I've plugged in uh, lots and lots of information here. And the final step that we want to do here in this case is going to be apply community incentive. Um, and this is very similar to a non-tax incentive that you might think of uh, maybe, you know, given by an individual city or individual entity, I should say. So if you're doing a normal kind of quote unquote normal non-tax incentive, you're looking at maybe an investment, say of $500,000, and we're comparing that to the net benefits that that city receives over uh, over the period of the analysis, in this case 10 years, $1.7 million in net benefits compared against that investment of $500,000. Now, that's the typical case, or maybe the more typical case, but the community incentive kind of is a little wrinkle on this, where when you click here on the public support tab, you click on this left-hand side on the community tab, and what we can do is kind of group uh, districts together. So if maybe it was going to be the city and the county going together on an incentive, you might want to compare the $500,000 to the combined net benefits that those two entities will receive. Again, on these individual tabs, you're always comparing specifically against what that entity will receive. So you would think of that if the $500,000 was coming strictly from the city, you would want to compare against their net benefits. But here in this case, we're thinking of this kind of coming from, jointly the city and the county together. So what we can do is up here we select the participating districts for the community incentive. So what this is going to do is going to identify what's the source of our return on investment. So we're going to have the city included, and then that throws in our net benefits for the city. So far this just looks like what we had already looked at of net benefits of $1.7 million, but we're also going to say the county is going to participate in this as well. So we've got the city and the county, and now we can see our footnotes telling us this, that the net benefits represent the net benefits for the city and the county together. So now our net benefits, they aren't just 1.7 million, they're $2 million. Okay. So now again, let's just go with that example of $500,000 being the investment amount. And again, we can compare that to the rate of return, or calculate a rate of return in a payback period um, against those two jurisdictions kind of combined. And so in this case, we can see that that's a 2.1 year payback period. So it's a little bit shorter than if it were only the city's net benefits kind of contributing to that rate of return. Um, and so again, what we're seeing is a community non-tax incentive against the community net benefit. And that you can, again, you see is $2 million that are the benefits to the city and the county. Now, once you do that, what you can do is kind of allocate that incentive if you choose to do that. And so what that would do would show you kind of detailed breakout for the city and the county's contribution. So if we allocate that incentive kind of on a 50-50 basis, and so the 500,000 gets split, $250,000 out of the city's pocket, so to speak, and 250,000 out of the county, we can see what's the payback period and rate of return in those cases. Now, in this case, if we kind of read across this table, we see the city of Arlington, their allocated amount, so to speak, is $250,000. They're being, that's the point where the amount we're tying to them. There were 100 jobs, so that's $2,500 per job from them, and a rate of return of 69% and a payback period of 1.1 years. And the county, on the other hand, if they're responsible for the other $250,000 of this, their rate of return is much lower, about 12.5%, and then their payback period is almost 7 years. And so if I wanted to, actually on this page, I can keep scrolling down and I can see how that plays out. First for the city of Arlington in this case, for our city, 1.1 year payback period, and then here's our county. It's taking quite a bit longer to get paid back. But again, if you remember, the combined, if we kind of take that broad view, it really is 2.1 years just, combined. Um, Now, that's only on the allocation if we kind of think of that as 50-50. Now, you could split this differently. So if we wanted to change this amount, um, we certainly could. If we wanted to do proportional to their net benefits, so basically what we would be doing is splitting the $500,000, allocate that proportional to the net benefits. That's going to equalize the rate of return. And so if we do that, we can see everybody gets a 40.7% rate of return. And in this case, we actually equalize our payback period as well. Um, and so this means that Arlington is being quote unquote allocated, or they are, um, the ones providing, so to speak, 423,000 of the $500,000 incentive. And we can see what that looks like here as well. So that we're equalizing this rate of return in this case. Now, uh, the other option we have here would be to do a custom percentage. So maybe if we knew actually the city is responsible for 75% of this and the county's, making up the other 25%, and we can just split it out that way. And so now we can see those calculations, and again, individually they're broken out this way. And if we do it that way, so we can kind of go to our report and we'll see that come through. So, for example, on our detailed report, we can see on this public support overview, we're showing that non-tax incentive. We had it split 75-25 of the total 500,000, and this chart is showing us the 2.1 years of the overall. Again, this overall being for the two entities together. Now, as we scroll down, we see that same table where we break out the payback periods for the two entities based on the allocation amount. Now, sometimes you don't really want to do that. Sometimes you just want to say, actually, we're providing this incentive, but we don't really want to allocate it at all. So the way to do that, and it's a little bit of a hack, but the way to do that would be to choose custom, and then just don't allocate any of it to the city and don't allocate any of it to the county. And what that's going to do for you is really just leave the one general kind of big community incentive analysis in place, but then it won't do anything for those individual entities. So again, we go back to our report, we would have this overall community incentive line of $500,000, but it's not allocated. We don't see it associated with any particular district. And then we see the $500,000 against whichever entities we chose. In this case, we chose Arlington and Tarrant County to get a 2.1 year payback period. But we don't see anything. So for example, if we looked at a summary report for the city of Arlington, there's no mention of the incentive or some sort of amount that they were kicking in, so to speak. The city wasn't offering anything, so to speak, on the incentive as we look at it this way. So that's a way that you can kind of look at an incentive where you really just kind of want to see it against the total, but not specifically against any one jurisdiction. And so that just gives you another level of flexibility when you're modeling incentives and you maybe wanted to compare it. Again, you could do this against all the jurisdictions, thinking maybe this is, on behalf of all the local jurisdictions. We're providing $500,000, and so in that case, you're getting paid back even faster. So that's just a little bit about how you can model that community tax incentive and some of the options around there. There's a lot of little wrinkles there that you can use, but I do like that custom, zeroing them out so you can kind of hack it and remove any extra detail that you didn't want to provide.